Let's do that. And let me know which screen you're seeing, if you're seeing the green presentation screen or a blue ocean. Oh, sorry, it says host has disabled the screening share thing. Candace?
How about now?
Okay, let me try. Okay, now I see it. Awesome. I think you should be able to see this green presentation screen, if I'm correct, right? Y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Sorry, I just trying to make sure. Perfect. Well, it looks like a few people are logging in there. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Again, my name is Rufaro. Some people call me by my middle name, Lisa. Both are completely fine. I'm super casual about it. So thank you for joining. It's been a financial literacy for women session, part of the women's support group that Miss Candalada has graciously been putting together, just kind of like a community-based learning. So she has different topics on there. Definitely check them out. Very, very helpful. I know she also does Organization 101. She also has anger and stress management. So just wanted to make that plug for her there. But yeah, so this is the second session. We did the first session on Wednesday, and it was, we're broken down into 3 sessions, knowing your money, essentially being conscious. And then the second one is surrounded by encompasses being systematic. Right. So this is all to do with personal finance, specifically geared for women. So again, my name is Rufaro. I just really am an advocate of women going from surviving to thriving. So particularly in the area of finance, all things, finance. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So again, we're going to kind of tackle being systematic. This is the brief outline. I already kind of did my little introduction. I'll do a little quick recap from the last session, just for those that just joined us or maybe didn't have the opportunity to join last on Wednesday, that is. And then we'll do a quick group share poll. And then I will dig into 6 types of budgets. Now, I didn't want to get to kind of like rudimentary because people generally kind of know what budgets are, but this is really more being systematic and how you can come up with your own budget mix per se, as I like to call it. So what may work for me may not work for Candace, it may not work for another person, but finding what areas work for you and for your lifestyle and the frequency you want to do it, the end of the goal. By the end of this session, you should be able to walk away with some sort of financial system strategy. And this works, right? This works. Even if you're consistent with just one piece of it, it definitely works. So the idea is to make sure you walk away from this session having some sort of tangible takeaway, right? The first session was about knowing your money, being conscious about what society and all that. And we're going to dig into that highlight, but I just want to make note of that we don't want to just go over certain terms and whatnot. We want you to actually tangibly have something you can think about and be like, yeah, I'm going to go do that. So that's the whole point. All right. So a little bit about me. I kind of covered a little bit before this. I'm in school. I'm hoping to graduate in 2024. And why do I have all these random pictures up here? Well, part of it is really just my goals. And knowing your goals and knowing who you are is a big part of what motivates you to really take action when it comes to your personal finance. So that's why I keep having this up here. I have a flag down there. It's a Zimbabwean flag and a United States flag because I was born in Zimbabwe. Pretty much grew up in the United States in California, relocated to the East Coast. So that's a big part of me, right? But I also love to travel. And that picture up there is a picture of Victoria Falls. It's found in between Zimbabwe, the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. And that's one of my goals. I want to go and travel to that beautiful place. I probably was last there maybe when I was 6 years old, but I haven't been back in as an adult. So that's on my bucket list, maybe after I graduate. And I'm passionate about all things finance. I studied economics at George Mason University. And I love helping women with their businesses. A big part of me is my faith, my family. I love flexibility, food, and fun. So these are all things that I know about myself that actually draft some of my goals for what I want to do and why I'm motivated to pursue my goals. So a little other quick recap before we go into the group share. So the last session was talking about knowing your money, and it's important to know your money because of, there's all kinds of things society throws at us as women, and so it's very important to be conscious of those things. So that's kind of what we talked about. A couple people share some of their financial barriers and what has worked for them in the past, or what isn't working for them what hasn't worked for them in the past, or what has. We kind of discussed some of the top 4 challenges women face, and some of those encompassed, a lot of it was like oppressive debt. A big one was kind of racial or gender discrimination. So women tend to earn 82 cents off of $1 that a man earns, which is like just so crazy that it's 2023 and that's still the case. It's been like that for decades. Although women are earning more money, but men are also earning more money. And so it's proportionately like, wow, for every dollar that a man earns, a woman earns 82%. And so these are good things to be conscious of, but not to really discourage you, just to know that they're there and for women to navigate around. And so we also talked about what our biggest motivations are for change. And it's important to know that so it keeps you on track. And kind of people's level of confidence. So here with the same group share. And the other thing is people were able to walk away in the last session with actual financial health scores. So we did a little exercise. So really quick exercise. It was 8 questions. If you'd like to do it, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you the information on how to do that yourself. Probably takes no more than 5 minutes, just 8 questions. And there's points assigned to each question, and you can actually calculate your financial health score. So this is really important about knowing yourself, knowing your money, because it helps you determine how well you're doing, whether you're financially vulnerable, financially coping, or you are financially healthy. And then it had 4 different categories that it assessed, whether in the area of saving, spending, your debt management, borrowing, or planning, long-term planning for the future. So now we're gonna kind of shift from that mindset of knowing your money to being systematic, right? So what does it mean to be systematic? Like, what does being systematic with your money mean to you? Does anybody care to share or share any thoughts of what that might mean for them, or what that means for them today, right now, versus maybe after this discussion, what it might mean in the future? Or what is a systematic person, with their personal finance? Does anybody want to pitch in or anything like that?
I'll go.
All right.
I used to think of systematic as a routine, more like a habit, something you do all the time. But as I get to know other financiers, it seems that systematic means automatic, like, auto paid bills and auto transfers, which is also like even an ongoing joke on HBO. Like, you've made it when your bills are on auto pay because you're just, not afraid that there's a lack of funds when they come.
Right.
So that became a big goal of mine, to go from to transfer it from just it being a habit to going over to automatic.
Right.
Still work in progress.
Yeah, no, you hit like a big part of what we're gonna discuss. Yeah, that kind of transitioning and letting go of, because we tend to be like, yeah, no, I'm managing my personal finance, so I'm on top of everything and I know where every dime and I'm gonna pay this amount. And that's good. But the more you automate and the more you create, more importantly, a system that works for you, then you're being, systematic. And it's automation is a big part of it. but we're definitely going to get into a couple other aspects that help you to automate, right? And so whatever your goals are, some of you all shared what your goals are in the last session, that should motivate you like, okay, now I know my money. I know I'm kind of conscious of society factors that kind of impact me as a woman in my finances, my earning capacity, and all these different things, and some of the financial barriers women face as opposed to men. Those same goals should also motivate you like, okay, let me create a system that works for me. Okay, this might work. Dave Ramsey might work for somebody else. It doesn't seem to be working for me. And Dave Ramsey is just really a method. Yes, he's somewhat come up with a system, but again, you have to really assess what is going to work for you based on where you are in life. So that's why we started with knowing your money first. So let's keep rolling right through. So some of the benefits for women who systematically manage their finances, interesting one, according to research, was actually increases self-efficacy and confidence. And it's like, well, why is that on there? Well, because there was actually an alarming amount of research that even sometimes when women are actually doing pretty decent or like financially thriving with their finances, they feel like they're not. They feel like maybe they're coping or maybe they're vulnerable. But so it's like, why do women tend to underestimate their financial capacity and also current situation? So this was quite kind of surprising, even like for me, but there's traces of consistency with this. And even sometimes some things that I do with women small owned business owners that I've helped in the past with clients, that this has actually been a consistent thing where, you know, maybe I'll have a client who's fully capable, has everything good to go. They just need to take action. But what was missing is actually that confidence, like, yeah, I can do this. And so that was kind of interesting that this also came up when it comes to personal finances as well. The other benefit is that it helps meet financial goals. So obviously, if you have more confidence in yourself in the system that you create. So if you're having a system of managing your personal finances, helps increases your confidence because you're like, okay, this is automated. I know exactly where this went. This is traceable. So it builds confidence, right? That you're going to meet your goals. And then it helps you automate actions. And it also provides some sort of accountability. Sometimes accountability is not always with people, but it can also be with whatever system you put in place, certain habits. You get notifications from an app you're using, whatever the case may be there. So that was kind of interesting that self-efficacy, you know, the ability, your self-belief in being able to accomplish something, and confidence was actually one of the main things. So that's kind of interesting for women. Ironically, women in the US actually control over half of the country's wealth. So this kind of perplexed me. I'm like, wow, it seems like we earn less. We tend to be a little bit more disadvantaged, but how is it that we're still controlling over half of the country's wealth? Well, it's because this is in the context of money is flowing through women. So maybe it's not necessarily staying with you and you're building wealth, but we definitely have our hand in it. So that was kind of interesting there. But at the end of the day, another little factor was millennial women are the age group most likely to say they're in survival mode. Again, kind of underestimating themselves regarding their personal finances. But according to critical indicators and kind of like assessments, 30% of them are actually thriving. So only 3% of people who say, you know, out of the 33% are actually like, oh man, I really actually am in survival mode or financially vulnerable. So creating a system helps kind of make things transparent and also visually see where you're at and like kind of what's going on with your money. Okay, I got, you know, all sorts of things going on. So how do we be systematic with money? So how to be systematic with your money. I'm going to dig into that. So some of the characteristics is kind of really being future oriented, obviously calculating. A big part of it is being patient and able to delay gratification. So are you this person? You could be this person, and maybe you are this person in certain areas, but maybe not in other areas. And so again, knowing your money helps you assess that, know where you're at, so that you know how to develop onward. Okay, so 3 habits of systematically smart women. They plan and budget. So we're actually gonna create a budget. I'm gonna create a budget for you here in just a sec. Let me keep this here for now because this is the screen you're seeing. They live within their means. That's a big one. They always find additional income sources, and people are really quick to emphasize side hustles and side gigs and whatnot. But I also say, you have to kind of balance your time and effort as well, right? If you have like 13 side gigs and it's draining you, you know what I mean? Is it really like, you know what I mean? So definitely capitalizing on what's most effective helps with that. I'm more of an advocate. If you are going to start a side gig, let it be a long-term business that creates passive income while you're doing your full-time job. I feel like that's one of the best approaches. So that way you're effective. And people are like, how do you work full-time? And how are you in school? And how are you running a business? Well, it's being systematic. So part of being systematic is your budget. Your budget is a big part of that. So we're going to do a little exercise, and I'm actually going to run the numbers for you right then and there to just show you how simple it is, and cover 6 types of budgets. But the way I'm going to cover these budgets is actually going to be, I'm going to explain it first, and then I'm actually going to do the exercise. And by the end of the exercise, I will actually have done a budget mix that mixes almost all 6, or at least 5 of them, into this budget spreadsheet that you're seeing on the screen. And again, I emphasize you have to do what works for you. So simple stewardship. But before I get into that, I'm just kind of curious, what kind of budget types have maybe you tried in the past, and which one may have worked for you? Does anybody want to share? Let's see who's on the line here. How about Mary? Would you like to share?
Sure. Some of the budgeting I've done, I've just put together like an Excel sheet, kind of similar to what you have, and just write down all my expenses, such as housing, utilities, transportation, whatnot. And then I will go from there. I'm pretty good at budgeting, but I feel like what I'm kind of lacking in as far as my finances, and we could probably go through it later, is more on the investment side.
Gotcha. And that's a good part. Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing. So what Mary just shared, I don't have it on here listed as, but she just shared, that's just a traditional budget where you get basic Excel spreadsheet. You can use Google Sheet. You can even use Word document or good old pen and paper, whatever works for you. So that's a traditional budget that she was just explaining, where you get your Excel, you list your expenses, you list your income, and you allocate and distribute accordingly. And you can do a traditional budget system and still use all of these that I'm about to go into, right? So my main point with all this is you really have to do what works for you. Simplify. I always tell people simplify. Someone might say, oh, I do this and I do zero-based budgeting, and that might be too much for all of you. You just want to know how much money's coming in, how many expenses do I have, and where can I now, because I know that, where can I now allocate, maybe like Mary said, to more investments in X, Y, and Z, and how can I automate that to build wealth? Because in her case, she's like, okay, I kind of have the basics down, but I just want to know, how can I take it a step further to, ensure that I'm meeting my goals. I write down my goals and kind of make that transition. So definitely, Mary, the next session we're going to go into that as well today. But the next session is really the how-tos on kind of, now that you know your money, you're being systematic, you walked away. The first session was knowing your money. You literally know your financial health score. And I can share that with you after the call. You know that, oh, I'm financially healthy in all areas except for saving. That was my case when I did the little assessment. So, or it could have been, oh, I'm healthy everywhere except for long-term planning, which encompasses investments. So now, okay, I have my budget. I know what's coming in and out. I have a system in place, a strategy to keep tabs of that money so that I can now allocate to my actual goals that we've been talking about goals this whole time. So that's the third session that actually dives more into that wealth building, long-term planning. But today we are going to cover that, but it's really in the context of being systematic, like with your budget, because budget is really the first thing that helps you be systematic. So just wanted to put that out there, but that's really great. So she does a traditional budget system. So there's 6 types of budgets listed on this screen. The first one here, and I've listed them in order, right? In descending order of the way I'm actually going to explain the budget exercise. So the first one is spending cap. Spending cap essentially means, let's say in this case, this person has one income, their salary, and they earn $100,000. I just kind of estimated after tax net income, right? So I just took I think it was 59% or 60. Man, taxes is really killing us, guys. It takes a big chunk. So if you're in a particular tax bracket, but these are just example numbers that I took for simplicity, right? So after taxes, I kind of estimated all the taxes and benefits and whatnot, and your actual take home after all your deductions, let's say you work your job and they take all that taxes and Social Security, all that stuff out, your actual take home might be around 62, 65 a year, break that down by 12 months. So this is your monthly income for this person is about $5,166. So the spending cap budget would say, instead of saying I have 5,166 every month as part of my income to budget, the spending cap would actually shave off an automatic, what is that, $366, and say, no, I'm going to mentally determine that my spending cap, my actual monthly income is 4,800, even though I know that 5,000 whatever is coming into the bank. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Anybody? Did I confuse anyone with that?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So yes, that's just a simple spending cap, because what that does is it's automatically creating kind of in business, we call it like a management reserve. And so then you can start from there. So then now we're actually going to do the other rules based off of this new 4,800 spending cap. And then we have the rule-based budget. So rule-based budget, it could be any type of proportion. It could be the 50-30-20 rule. It could be the 80-20 rule, the 70-30 rule, whatever works, again, whatever works for you. But these rules are essentially just saying, for instance, in this example, we're doing the 80-20 rule. It's just saying, hey, 80% of that 4,800 is going to go to my essentials and needs. And then 20% will cover, I'm calling it goals. Somebody might call it wants. The 50-20-30 rule traditionally calls it wants versus savings. It's however you want to split it up, right? But I kind of lump it in as goals, and you'll see why I did that in just a second, right? So you got your spending cap, it's 4,800. Now I decided in this exercise, I was going to opt for the 80-20 rule. Now, the reason why I also have them in this order is because they're in order of simplicity. So if you're just getting started and somebody else is doing the 50-20-30 rule, which means that 4,800, half of it is going to their needs and the other half they're putting towards wants and savings, that might be too stringent for some people. That might be too restrictive. But starting out, you might say, okay, this is my spending cap, but I'm going to opt to do the 80-20 rule. So that's what this exercise is focused on, is this person decided, I'm going to do the 80-20 rule. I'm just getting started. So they split their 4,800 into needs and wants, right? Again, these wants are really subdivisions of goals. That's why I have here in this 20% goals, but I just split it in just a very simple way. So now I've already, and this I did in Excel, right? I could pull this up and change the numbers if anybody wants me to do that. So I actually essentially used Mary's traditional budgeting of just using an Excel spreadsheet. And again, I just kind of made these up. These are not my personal, this is just for example's sake. I used the traditional budget. I also used the spending cap because I decided to shave off and just put in my mind that, no, I don't earn 5,000 when I actually earn 4,800 and I'm going to budget for that. Then I decided to use a rule-based budget. I used the 80-20 rule because I want to split my needs and my wants. I want to know exactly where my money's at. So in my needs column, it's very simple. All your absolute essentials, right? Like your housing expense, your utilities, all the things that you have to pay them, right? Otherwise, someone's coming to collect your car or something like that. Like those are all your needs, your essentials. I also applied the pay yourself first rule, budget. A lot of people kind of advocate for this, particularly if you are have a lot of goals with long-term investment. They kind of have that rule where it says pay yourself first, because they're saying essentially pay yourself into your own savings or your own investment for long-term planning. And this is done automatic. So everything in your needs, I wanted to mention, should be done automatically. Like you set up that automation that Candace was talking about earlier. Now, the other thing, like in my case, for here in my needs, I might have an extra column here because of my faith. I pay tithes. So I might have another column above pay yourself first that says tithe and offering, and it'll say at 10%. But I'll put it in the needs column. I won't put that in the wants or miscellaneous. So how you allocate things really makes a big difference, because it determines, again, everything in that needs column is should and must be automated. Okay, so I have applied the traditional budget, spending cap. I got the 4,800. I already put in my mind, I'm not earning this 5,000. I'm earning 4,800. From there, I did a rule-based budget and I opted to do the 80-20 rule. It's very simple. You don't have, if you want to be a little bit more strict, lenient or whatever, maybe have a little bit more goals, you could do the 70-30 rule. Or if you're really like living below your means, then you can go for the 50-20-30 rule. But don't go after that, like beginning. I always say that, do what works for you. And so, yeah, so it's important to have all your needs automated, student loan or food, whatever. And again, these are just example numbers, may not be, especially in our area, DC, things are quite expensive. So again, these are just example numbers. And then, so I listed all those expenses. They're all automated, pay yourself first. And then here we have what's called the zero-based budget. All that means is that after I've listed all my needs and all my wants, the total needs and wants should equal that 4,800, right? So there should be actually a zero balance, hence this highlighted zero here. And I'll explain, because we did 80% goes to needs, 20% goes to wants. So this 3,840 is 80% of your 4,800 spending cap budget. And then the 960 is 20% of your 4,800 spending cap budget. Now, again, you don't have to do all of these in your budget. You can just use 2 of them. You can just do a traditional Excel and say, I'm going to do, the rule-based or whatever. But the reason why I emphasize this zero-based budget is actually extremely effective in conjunction with a spending cap, because you've already created an automatic management reserve. and then all your needs are being paid automatic. Make sure you set up, your what is it called? Your electronic funds transfer with all your bill payment folks, all your car payment, whatever. Now the food one, obviously it's not going to be automated because you're probably going to be swiping your card or whatever. So the next one that I'm talking about is envelope system. Now, me personally, envelope system does not work. Envelope system means that you have this budget, and perhaps for all your wants, that's 960, you'd go to the ATM, take out the cash, and actually put the money in envelopes. For me, I'm like, I don't have time for that. For some people, it works great because they put maybe their money for, and it could be something in their needs too. It just depends on how you want to set it up. They might put, gas money in an envelope cash so that they don't go over that. And they might put food, for shopping. And for me, I don't know, in this day and age, I feel like the envelope system may be good if you're taking a trip. If you're going on vacation and you really don't want to just keep swiping your card, that might actually be applicable. But I just put it out there because some people like it. And some people have electronic envelope systems. There are apps out there that do that, like Good Budget. Goodbudget.com does that. So if that's what you're into, hey, go for it. For me, it doesn't really work. Or maybe I might decide on my 80-20 rule over here in the miscellaneous shopping column that I'll go to the ATM, pull out $240 and put it in envelopes. Again, you got to do what works for you. For me, it doesn't really work for me. I like things automated. I don't like to touch cash. So you got to do what works for you, right? So that's the split there. And then I made an extra column here of like, okay, now this is the excess cash. Again, in the wants column, 960, which is 20% of your spending cap budget. And then that's broken down into all the different goals you might have or you're working towards. So it might be saving an investment goal. So maybe every month you want to make sure you contribute $240 or $288 to paying off debt. Maybe you have some credit cards or extra payments on your car payment, because remember, your needs is already covered here, transportation. So maybe your car is there, your student loan is there. But if you have a debt payoff goal, then maybe you're using that $288 to put an extra payment on your student loans or whatever. And at the end of the day, you've done zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting means you've allocated every single dollar in your budget to something, even if it's to savings. You've allocated it and you know exactly what it is and how you're going to do that. And you can automate all this. We'll talk about that in just a sec, right? But that saving and investment one is probably really one of the biggest ones, really, right? So that you can meet your goals. So again, this is why we mentioned it all depends on your goals. For me, this is a big part of my goal. I love to travel. I love doing, business. I'm trying to finish school. I know that once I finish school, my savings might go back up again. Regent University has been taking all my money, guys, but it's okay. It's temporary. It's temporary. And I use mint.com to track all of that, really to help me monitor. And because I'm a visual person, so what works for me is to visually see it. Like Mint shows me little monthly reports and like charts, and I can see like, oh gosh, yeah, all my money is going to Regent University. Like I can visually see it, and I can visually see my debt, and I can see it going down because I have a debt payoff goal, right? So you have to really do what works for you. Simple stewardship. The reason why I emphasize stewardship is when you have that in your mind, and it's really more so a biblical concept, but when you have that in your mind, you kind of feel like, okay, I'm responsible for this money. So I need to be effective. I need to be, resourceful and make sure I am managing what comes into my hands well. So the fact that there's a lot of research out there that actually, almost 2/3 of the US money is actually flowing through women, yet that statistics is showing that we still earn less money than men. and there's all these different financial barriers tells me that there's a lot of potential there, right? If we actually just steward whatever comes through our hands as best as possible. And the more you do that, this is a life principle, guys, and whether you're a Christian or not, this is a faith principle as well. If you steward what you have, the little you have, you will get more. This is regardless of your faith. If you look at anybody who's like good at whatever, if they steward what they have, the little that they have, more will be given to them. This is just a life principle, regardless of what faith you are. So stewardship is very, very important. When you have that in mind, it motivates you to say, maybe I will do a little zero-based budget, or maybe zero-based budget is a little too detailed for me, but I'm still gonna use the spending cap to make sure I'm constantly automatically building a reserve just by doing the spending cap. You put in your mind, oh, this is coming in, but this is what I actually budget. So you know that there's always going to be some sort of excess. Then you just got to, whether that's going into your checkings or your savings, you can automate that based on your job or however you get your income. Does anybody want me to show them how that number came up in Excel, or have any questions before I move forward on any of those different? I literally use pretty much all those budget types, and you don't have to do that, but this is important in creating your system, because it's really the basis of how you then begin to monitor that and make sure you're meeting your investment goal. And what is your investment goal or saving goal? Or, oh, I want to go on vacation. So instead of me just going and using the credit card, I've constantly been putting, $192 towards my vacation fund or whatever, or account, right? Does anybody have any questions on that before I move on? Because that was a lot. I kind of dumped at it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do accountants view? Okay, so let's say you don't do zero-based, but you did your needs and you did some of your wants, and for reasons unknown, you now have $200 at the end of the month sitting in your checking account. Is it recommended to carry it over to savings so you're starting with the new budget every pay cycle, or do you leave it there?
If you have an excess, you said $200?
Yeah, let's say you've done some stuff, you paid you made this whole 50, 20, 30 budget. You planned to spend it to a T. But let's say you decided, I'm not going to get the Beats by Dre, I'm not going to buy the Peloton in the want section. So you ended up with money left over from your wants, or you negotiated your cable bill and now there's money left over from your needs. At the end of the month, do they leave that resting in the checking, or is it recommended to do something with that monthly surplus?
That all depends on your goals, which is why I emphasize your goals so much, right? So you could leave it in your checking and it's just building your balance, or you could decide to put it to work to one of your goals over here, right? One of your, and that's why it's important to have that long-term planning. I think that's kind of what Mary was kind of pointing to, like for her interest is on the investment side, right? So if and I do that, I actively do that. If there's any like little extra thing, or, oh, I got an unexpected, I don't know, state tax refund thing, I'm like, oh, let me put that towards, paying off, putting extra payment towards my car, or because I already know I have, it's very important to have those goals written down so that whenever there's variability in, maybe because these needs, not all of them are fixed, right? Like food is not fixed, gas is not fixed. You kind of have an estimate, but depending if you drive, I mean, your car payment might be fixed, but your, gas is not fixed, right? So there's some things in your needs that, there's some variability, and you can have impact on that, or utilities. Not all utilities are fixed, right? Some they go with usage. That's why they're utilities. Your electricity bill, you make sure to go through your house and unplug things that aren't being used. That actually saves it does make an impact over the long term. So there's a column where there's variability, yes, there's potential for you to increase that excess income, which can just turn into a basic savings. Just leave it or transfer it into your savings real quick, go on your phone or your app. Or if you have, and prioritize your goals. For me, that payoff is probably higher. It is higher than my savings and investment goal these days in my life. For, I don't know, for reasons that I keep emphasizing. I'm in school and Regent is taking all my money. I can't wait to graduate, guys. I cannot wait to graduate, for multiple reasons, of course. But I know I put in my mind that I had a goal that I want to pay off all my debt except for my house. And so I'm on that goal. I think I'm down to my car. I have about 10,000 on that. So any excess stuff for me, in for your question, I would put it towards extra payment on my car. So it really depends on your goals. And it's important to, if you do have wants, yeah, make those goals in there and systematically create, you know, a savings account or whatever you want to use to do that. And that can also be automated too. You know, miscellaneous too is another one there's so many things that have variability, right? But there's some that are just fixed. It is what it is. You're paying that every month. So just keep that in mind. Anybody else have a question on this before I move on? Okay, so that's all these different types of budget systems that are it's part of your financial system, really. But the budget is one of the core things. And the reason why, again, you have these different rules. It's up to you what kind of rule you want to use. These are in order of simplicity. So the 80-20 rule, the simple 70-30, 50-20-30 rule, or you can come up with your own weird proportion that you like. I don't know, whatever you like, right? But they're all under rule-based budgeting. Whatever rule that you set up, you can now enforce it with automation, right? So a couple of tips: know your habits. So if you know you like to go out on the weekend, or if you know you like to, I know one of my funny habits I was sharing with one of my friends, I absolutely love Hobby Lobby. I love Hobby Lobby, and I know if I go in there and I say I'm going to spend 15 minutes, I might come out 2 hours later. So I try not to, you know, it just gets you with all the, you know, home decor stuff, right? But know your habits so that you can kind of mitigate those or manage those as best as possible. Keep stewardship in mind, right? Again, it's almost a management principle, but it's really true. If you're faithful with little, much will be entrusted into your hands. So stewardship is very, very important. Make a tailored budget. Like I said, you don't have to do all of these that I mentioned. Oh, and the no anti-budget is just for people who really need that maximum flexibility. I know what's coming in. I know my expenses, and they're not really allocating anything. And that's fine too. That's why I put it on there. Like, if that works for you, that's fine. That's fine. Do what works for you. So create that tailored budget, right? Once you've created that tailored budget, you want to automate it. So automate your income. So if you have your job, your employer, or if you run your business, especially if you're running your business, you know, I hope at that stage you're definitely automating. Maybe you have someone who's helping you, a bookkeeper or a CPA or whoever. You want to make sure you separate those two. But if you're paying yourself from your business, make sure that also that is same thing. It's like, make sure it's automated, just like if you were working a 9 to 5. So you want to automate that. And when you automate that, don't just give them one account for all your money. Tell your job, hey, this is my checking. If you wanted to, you can tell them right away, for your main checking, I want you to deposit $4,800 of my monthly salary, and you can calculate the percentage. So let's say this was, I'm just going to throw out a percentage because I didn't do the math in my head, but let's say that $4,800 was 90% of your income. You could tell your job, okay, please allocate 90% of my income into my main checking account here. And they'll do that, and then give them a savings account that you don't easily access, and tell them, hey, 10% of my income, can you automatically put it in this account? So that excess amount, guess what? Your job is doing it for you. You don't even need to do anything. So that's how you can begin with that spending cap right off the bat. And I do this. And it helps, because every now and then you check, you're like, oh man, thank God I've been, putting an extra 5% or 10% towards, you know what I mean? It really, really does help. And if you're doing the spending cap, it's really, the purpose of that is to create a reserve. Just like if you're doing a business, you would have management reserves. So this is very, very effective. Even if you walk away today and you just set that up alone, it'll help you tremendously. So automate your income, and you can have multiple. You can have several other accounts or with different banks, and tell your job, oh, could you put 5% here, blah, 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 or whatever the case may be, or 10% towards your investment account. And then you use any money that your job deposited into that account. You only go to that account to fund your investments. And that's a way you create your system. But again, this has to be totally tailored. All I'm trying to do is cover some tools and tips so that you can then create what works for you. A lot of people like to create methods and then kind of force it on people. And that's fine. If it works for you, great. But a lot of the times people are so complex that it helps to equip people and have them really assess, okay, this is my situation. These are my goals. I think this is what will work for me best, right? And then automate your bills, same thing. So all those expenses, all those needs, so your car payment, all that, utilities, automate. Like Candace said, just automate it. If you walk away today, you go and create even a traditional budget. You tell your job or your employer, or if you're self-employed, whatever, make sure you set that up. Do that and you automate. That alone should set you up for pretty good success. And then automate investments, because if you are, let's say you're doing a zero-based budget, you know exactly how much is going into what fund, right? And a lot of this is knowing your money and being able to track it in such a way where it's not too much headache for you, or you're not constantly recreating an Excel. I mean, you could certainly have an Excel as a reference point, but you have to shift to automation, but writing down your goals so that you can track and monitor your progress, And so that's where some of those free apps that I shared in the last session really come into play, because they can tell you, you can set it up in such a way they could tell you on a daily basis how well you're doing, or on a weekly basis, or on a monthly basis. And that's extremely important to see that, whether you like it in list form or in graphs, whatever the case may be, you want to automate that. So a big part of being systematic, again, your income comes in, it's cash flow management. And guess what? This is exact same if you were running a business. It's just less to manage, right? So if you think about it that way, that's why I'm such a big advocate for women's, yes, personal finance, but I love to help women with their businesses, because I'm like, most of the stuff you're already doing it. It's just putting structure to it and figuring out a system that works for you. So cash flow comes in, and you can either decide, is all of it going to go to expenses, right? Needs, or is some of it going to go to savings and investments category? So the more you automate that, the more you don't have to think about it. And it's creating a flow. It's creating a flow of your income. And then if you're not adding additional incomes with a business or a side gig or whatever, then you are truly building financial wealth, right? Over here in expenses, you also have like insurance and stuff like that. This is what helps protect your wealth and your assets and things of that nature. But it's the same concepts. It's the same concept. So if I know my goals, the things that matter to me is faith, family, flexibility, food, and fun. And for some reason, they all start with F. I don't know why. But it's important to know that. So and the reason why I have flexibility here is because people emphasize, oh, I want to retire early and you're still gonna need some sort of income, even if you have investments and things of that nature. So I believe in financial flexibility. And to what degree do you want financial flexibility should narrow down some of your goals. So this is really the core of your financial health. In the last session, remember, we took that health score. Are you financially vulnerable, coping, or are you financially healthy? And so here it says net worth, or it's really like your personal balance sheet, right? But this is the flow of it. And so once you create a system, these are some of the tips that help you do that. You are now being systematic without even thinking about it. But once you have your system up, it's just a matter of monitoring, right? So the next session is going to go into, being proactive in monitoring, because now that you know your money, you have a system in place. So some of those investments, if it's investments, it now depends on your goals, right? I keep going on your goals. So if your goal is to, I want to get into, you have active investments and passive investments. For me, I advocate people to start with passive investments before you go into anything active. You want different types of investment to diversify. Maybe you're interested in real estate investments. You're interested in stocks, things, or an ETF, stock, things that are liquid. It depends on your goals. If you want an investment where it's extra cash reserves that are growing money for you, but you at any time you can liquidate, then that's going to look different from someone else who's, oh, I want to invest and automate my investments and maybe get a house, or maybe also invest in REITs, like real estate, but in a passive manner. I don't want any too much hands-on, or I'm willing to pay an advisory for fees. I think you should really wait before you start going down that route of like paying advisories, because start with passive income. It depends also on your risk tolerance as well. So all those can also be automated, but you really have to be committed to your goals in order to automate investments, because and do it for the long term, whether it's passive or, active, because like even right now, stock market's kind of up and down all over the place. But if you have the mindset of, no, this is long term, then that you have different goals there. So some free apps to help you automate and kind of do some of those tips that we were talking about here with your budget. The last session we shared budgeting apps, like mint.com, Personal Capital. Some people say they use Quicken, whatever works for you, that's great. But just to reiterate, on the income with your employer, make sure that direct deposit is not just one account. Go ahead and tell them 3 or 4 accounts. Why not? It helped. They're literally doing it for you. Okay. And then with your bills and expenses, you want to automate that with all your vendors and all your bill vendors. So, utilities, whatever the case may be. And then for investments, you want to do EFTs, like determine how much you're comfortable automatically going into a certain account or a certain broker account. All these that I've listed, I've actually used them, and they're just different little mechanisms. So I don't like putting things that I've not used. It's not that I'm vetting, but I just don't like promoting, vendors that I have no idea about. I mean, there's others out there, but these are just examples, right? So when it comes to investments, I like to you're going to have something with your job, let that be there, but you should really have a private broker. I've used Fidelity in the past. They're great. They're also relatively free, and they offer their own ETFs and stuff that don't charge any fees, which actually could save you a lot of money. And if it's mirroring a lot of what, if it's following the S&P 500, then you're actually kind of getting the same performance that those indexes get without paying the extra fees that I was talking about, or advisory fees, or just the basic broker fees. So that's a good way to look out for that. You can create a free account. Fidelity offers I'm a big advocate for ETFs, right? They're liquid. They can have more tax advantages, and it's a good way to just do, kind of passive investment. You don't have to be hands-on about it because it'll pick a particular sector, and you can, if you want to just sell it off and get the cash real quick. There's been a whole bunch of ETFs that I quickly just sold on Fidelity, and then I used the cash to make a lump sum payment on my car, because I was like, the market right now, some I left for long term, but it's there. It's good to have that. Again, keyword flexibility. I used Acorns in the past, and Acorns, what they do is they connect to your bank account, and let's say you make a purchase for $5.50 at Starbucks, they round it up to $6, and they take that extra 50 cents and they put it in an investment account for you that is just growing. So as you're swiping your card every time, there's like 50 cents here or $1 here that they're taking on each transaction. And that could be an effective way, but there was a time where it got a little bit too aggressive, and I was like, I'm gonna cancel this. So again, it's up to you. Do what works for you. If some people like that, because it's like incrementally building, investments for you. And then I also believe, I have Wells Fargo on here because they kind of do the same thing. They have like this way to save thing, but that's just a basic savings account. Again, we all know bank savings account don't earn much of anything. But it's a good way to just earn. If you, let's say you wanted to create a vacation little savings thing, that's a good way to set it up. And I think other banks do this, but every time I would, let's say, swipe my debit card, it would transfer $1 for each transaction into my savings account. And that adds up quite quickly because we have so many things that we use our debit cards for. So again, these are all little tips and strategies to have. You're just automating it. You're not even thinking about it. Fundrise and Ground Floor and Prosper, these are all alternative investments, and I do advocate for that. Some people would have cryptocurrency listed on here. I'm not a big fan. I'm sure you've all seen the news on that. Again, it's all according to your risk tolerance. So if you're into that and you're okay and you've been buying and selling Bitcoin or whatever the case may be, or whatever it is, hey, more power to you. I just prefer to stick with things I can see. So Fundrise is for real estate. You can invest in different types of real estate projects. It could be a little bit more long-term, but it's a good way to invest in real estate without going full out and, actually going and buying a property directly yourself, right? So a lot of developers will put together a project and you can pick and choose if you want to do commercial or residential, you could do it there. Interesting thing, I also discovered this other one called Ground Floor. I'm also planning to use that more. It's very interesting. They do real estate alternative investing, but what they do is you are lending to people doing real estate projects. So you're kind of like a bank, you're a mini bank. And surprisingly, depending on the economy, you can actually earn quite a lot doing that. So these are all just different little tips that, again, I don't like advocating for stuff that I haven't done myself. These are things. I have a Prosper account. Prosper is also peer-to-peer lending. You lend to people, to just individuals who are doing this. So some may be consolidating debt. Some may be doing a home improvement. Some may have applied for a personal loan through Prosper, and you're actually funding that and earning off of the loan note. So I do all these, and hey, there are different ways, when the economy is going up and down, recession, blah, 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 blah. This is a great way to actually automate investments and say, okay, I'm going to put $50 every month in a Prosper account or whatever. And Prosper and Ground Floor, again, you're lending. Fundrise and Ground Floor, they're both crowd funding kind of platforms, except Fundrise, you're investing for return. Ground Floor, you're like the lender, but they're both for real estate. So that's a cool way to get into real estate without actually going and doing all the, hustle and bustle of getting an actual property. If you're maybe, let's say you're trying to make baby steps towards buying your own property, it can also actually, you never know, long-term fund. But just keep in mind, ground floor is more liquid. Think of ground floor as like Fundrise, but you're lending, but it's more liquid. At any given time, you can go and you can pull your money out and stuff like that. Fundrise is a little bit more long-term. So just wanted to share that. If you have any debt, whether it's credit card or loans, whatever, you want to automate some small payments. If it's specifically a credit card, I advocate pay small payments. Even though, let's say you have a credit card bill and it's $100, you pay your credit card bill, but let's say the next week, just make an extra $25 on it. It kind of restarts the interest cycle. So, and it helps you clear that debt faster. And there's a whole bunch of different tips you can follow for that. Debt snowball and all this stuff. I know Dave Ramsey talks about it a lot, but you can look it up, different tactics. You have to figure out what works for you. So I hope that was helpful. Does anybody have any questions on any of these? Again, all of these are free. You don't have to pay. You know, your bank can also do a lot of these different little things, automation for you. But does anybody have any questions on that before we wrap up? Nope. All right. I hope that was helpful in being systematic. Yes, automation is a big part of it, but you need to have a budget that works for you first. And in order to have a budget that works for you first, you need to know your money. And before you know your money, you kind of need to know what your goals are at the end of the day. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, just emphasizing, do what works for you. This was just an example showing how you can actually apply multiple budget mix, but you could do this yourself. After this call, you can grab a pen and paper, you can go on Excel. And if you don't want to do this in Excel, you can do it in a budget app like mint.com or Personal Capital, whatever works for you, or Quicken. Okay, so gonna wrap up. Does anybody have any final questions, comments? I hope that was helpful. The next session, the last session is on Wednesday, and that's being proactive and monitoring. So for that one, we dig more into, okay, now that you know your money, you have your budget, you have your system, look at your goals again. What exactly is your goal? So you want to come with your goal to the session. Like, so if your goal is long-term planning investments or paying off debt or whatever the case may be, that's where we would go into that a little bit more in detail and see what is the actual financial plan, what are the elements of the financial plan and how you can monitor that moving forward. All right. That's all, guys. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there on the different budgets. So hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rufaro. Thank you for donating your time and always coming prepared and having me scramble in the background to see how I can improve and come up to these standards.
And again, don't feel like you have to do all of what I mentioned. You can literally, even if you just do one or two, I'm telling you, it'll make a big difference. And the biggest one, spending cap, tell your employer, put this money here, put this money here. They've already done half the work for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending. I sent a little chat out asking for your email. If you're not comfortable writing your email in the chat, you can email me directly. I just want to be able to keep in touch with you. I also sent the link to the HTU website so that you can see some of the other courses and some of the other plans. It's cold and winter is tough. It's a great time to stay inside, a great time to save money. But hopefully in the spring, when it gets warm, at some point, we can just like all get together and maybe reflect on some of the cool stuff that we did over the winter and just talk about the journey and just get to connect on a more personal level. But for now, let's just grind, learn and grind.
Yes, and let's thrive, y'all. Like there's a lot coming at us, as women, as minorities, and I just want everybody to do well because, personal finance is one thing, but once you have a handle on that, again, your goals are, that's what drives everything, you know, so you can set all this up. And then once you have a pretty good handle on this, then you're like, you know what? I'm doing pretty good. Let me add additional incomes. Let me do a business. Let me do that. And it just flows right into the system.
Also, if you have a friend that you think will benefit, share with them. I'm a little behind on posting some of the recordings. Like I said, I want to edit them to make them more concise, but I will put them up there on the archive so your friends can catch up and hopefully join us on Wednesday. And so the topics are not fully related, but I did notice that finance is like the highest interest. Our stress and anger is kind of like, woo-hoo. I guess nobody was talking about stress and anger. Organization went okay, but we just had such a turnout for finance that hopefully we're going to give Miss Rufaro a break so she could study. And then maybe at the end of the year, we could whip her back and maybe we can do something advanced for our ladies that were here for the first round that feel like they have managed everything and they're ready to kick it up a notch. I'll reach out and you can let me know, you know, in 6-7 months if you feel like you need a refresher or if you're ready to turn it up. I love you all and have a wonderful, productive, or relaxing Saturday. Your choice.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Miss Candace. Take care. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.